Hello and good morning. Welcome to the program. Of course, a happy Wednesday to every one of you out there watching right about now. It is the Money Show reaching you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Nancy Ilo. Thank you for joining us again today. We'll promise that we will try to give you business, financial, market, as well as economic information. That is what I do anytime you get to see my face on the screen. Okay, today we have quite a whole lot to offer you. We will start, of course, our theme for today. On Monday, we all got to hear the news that the former CEO of Intercontinental Bank, Erastus Akigbola, is now a free man. The courts dismissed the charges, over 20 count charges against him on Monday. What does all this say? Of course, he was alleged of stealing depositors' monies totaling over 42 billion naira. What does all this say for our judiciary system, also for our financial sector? You can join us right about now. Go to facebook.com/ABC Money Show Live and send us your comments, your questions, as well as your opinions. Tell me what you think about that. Secondly, we'll also be taking you through, of course, I promised last year on the program that we'll be bringing you, I would say, slices of what the financial system strategy is all about, how the key regulators that are actually synchronized within the financial system is doing quite a whole lot to achieve before 2020 or 2025. If you follow the Goldman Sachs report today, we'll be looking at human capital development in the financial sector. So that's the program this Wednesday. Okay, let's get started now. I will take you through the market numbers. I won't forget about that. Let's quickly tell you how the Nigerian exchange finished on Tuesday. We'll also take you through other exchanges across Africa, Asia, in America, as well as Europe. Let's start with the Nigerian market. On Tuesday, we saw the exchange upside by nearly 1%. The Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index, which is the price barometer, that shows us that's a reflection of share prices listed on the market. The index finished at 20,849.94. The market is still sitting very firmly at the 6 trillion naira mark. The volume of shares traded on Tuesday finished at 262.66 million ordinary shares at a value of 2.19 billion naira in over 4,000 transactions. Looking at the advances for Tuesday, Komo Oil was upside by 5% at 13.88 kobo. Don't forget, the Komo Oil will be paying its shareholders a cash dividend of 4 naira. Zenith Bank also will be paying a cash dividend. We told you on this show last week, of course even 2 weeks ago, that the Nigerian Stock Exchange set March 31st deadline for 119 firms listed on the stock exchange to release their full year 2011 reports. We've seen most of the banks coming in with their earnings. Access Bank finished upside also at 5.88 kobo on Tuesday. GT Assurance 1.33 kobo upside by 4.72. Now moving over to the decliners, Owando PLC was down at 19.95. Presco PLC at 10.15. Cadbury Nigeria PLC 11.41. While Beggar Paints finished downside 4.94%. Also this week we got reports from the Nigerian Stock Exchange saying that it's bringing out new requirements, of course, for listing, and that is expected to attract more companies to get listed on the exchange. Of course, so much has been said about getting the big firms listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, just like we see in Joburg. The Nigerian Stock Exchange said on Tuesday that these requirements may just get them listed, such as the telcos and the big oil and gas firms. We'll keep our eyes on that very closely. Let's move over now to other African exchanges. The Accra Bourse was upside by 0.2% at 1,055.57. The Nairobi Securities Exchange was also upside on Tuesday by over 0.75% at 3,392.23. The South African market down sharply 1%. Semdex in Mauritius was upside by 11 basis points, while we saw EGX 30, talking about the Egyptian market, down nearly 1%. Let's move over to the U.S. where we saw Wall Street falling on Tuesday. Of course, Wall Street is not open. It will be open 2:30 p.m. our time. That's the New York Stock Exchange. But these are the indices we got on Tuesday. Nasdaq down 0.20%. S&P 500 posted its best quarterly performance in, I would say, since 1998, of course, talking about the first quarter performance, but yesterday it finished 0.40% down. The DJIA, which means Dow Jones Industrial Average, was also down 0.5% at 199.50. Dow Jones Industrial Average posted a 7.5% gain in the first quarter. Okay, moving over to the European bourses now. We saw stocks in Europe are falling in morning session as hopes for further economic stimulus in the U.S. are faded, and Eurozone services sector data showed a deepening slump. European banks, which have rallied around 13% this year, were among the worst performers this morning, and that largely impacted most bourses across Europe. Also, the European Central Bank interest rate decision is due later today. That's about 1:45 p.m. our time. The Paris CAC run down nearly 1%. London FTSE 0.2% in the red. The Frankfurt Xetra DAX is also in the negative territory, 1.36% at 6,887 points. Moving over to Spain's IBEX, of course, for Spain, the government earlier this week unveiled an austerity budget, about 27 billion euros. That is, we will see more hard times in Spain. Unemployment in Spain stands at about 20% right now. Stocks 50 down nearly 1%. Let's move over to Asia, where Asian shares is today after the minutes from the U.S. Fed March meeting suggested that the bank was likely to take further stimulus measures, leaving investors looking for more clues over global growth outlook. The Hong Kong's Hang Seng was upside by 1.31%. The Nikkei 225 in Japan down 2.29%. That's a sharp drop, while Chinese shares appreciated by about 0.5%. Other Asian markets that we track for you on the show indicated that most indices also finished in the red territory, because as we speak right now, the Asian markets are closed. The Sensex in Bombay down 0.75%. The Aussies traded in the red 7 basis points. That's a marginal decline, 1.5% downside for Seoul shares. Okay, let's move over to our commodities now. Brent crude down at $124.06. Light sweet is trading downside also, 0.52%, while our own Bonnie Light is at $126. Gold is trading for $1,638 an ounce. Coffee is doing $2,131 Okay, cocoa is doing $2,131, while coffee is trading at $182. Let's take a look at Naira rates right now. How is the Naira trading against the basket of major currencies that we follow here for you on the program? At the parallel markets, you would be exchanging the Naira for the super currency, the US dollar, at 158 Naira. Against the British pound, 254. But of course, at the official window, the CBN rate, 247 Naira 70 kobo. Against the euro, 213. Against the currency of Saudi Arabia, it is called the Riyal. You'll be exchanging that for 41 Naira. But don't also forget that Qatar uses the Riyal as its currency, but of course we differentiate that the Saudi Riyal as well as the Qatar Riyal. The SEFA, you'll be exchanging that for 317 Naira. Let's move over to global currencies now. The euro against the dollar is doing 132, down 0.3% against the Japanese yen. It is trading for 82.92. Against the Swiss franc is doing 0.91350, upside by 0.38%. Okay, let's quickly take a break. And when we come back, we will be talking with, or I will be speaking with Chris Agbiti. We will be talking about Akibola not guilty. We'll definitely take an in-depth look into that matter after the break.
Now let's hold Limited, specialized in designing, building, equipping and managing hotels, restaurants, fast food and nightclubs for individuals and government. Nanit Hotels also specialize in hotel development, sourcing of finance, management, tourism development, consulting and training. Our branches are spread all over the country. For booking or inquiries, visit our website at www.nanetgroup.com.ng or call 080-8811-9979, 080-65-289-799, 080-330-33498. Nanit Hotels Limited, superior hospitality services.
Hospitality services.
All right, welcome back. A federal high court in Lagos on Monday dismissed charges of fraud against former Intercontinental CEO Erastus Akigbola for lack of diligent prosecution by the EFCC. You would recall that Akigbola was first arraigned by the EFCC on December 31st, 2010 on charges of misuse of depositors' funds, abuse of office and money laundering to the tune of 5 billion naira initially. The charges were later amended to the tune of 42 billion naira. In all, the prosecution amended the charges against Akigbola up to 3 times previously before the same judge. These are some of the issues we'll be looking at on the program this Wednesday morning. Joining me right now to discuss this is Chris Agbiti. He's a legal practitioner. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, viewers.
I quickly want us to x-ray this because on Monday, many of us heard this, especially for those of us that follow some of the cases as it concerns the financial sector. We knew what happened in 2009. Of course, it's no longer news when Sanusi came into office as the CBN governor, and he actually said there were a lot of financial mismanagement that went on. And we saw the EFCC, of course, arraigning most of the former CEOs. Talk to me about your own sense of the 42 billion naira fraud against Erastus Akigbola that was dismissed by the court on Monday.
Well, I think it's necessary and it's very important for the public to have a background perspective leading to the purported dismissal of the charge against Akigbola at the Federal High Court by Justice Charles Achibong. On that day, the 2nd day of April, when the matter came up, the business of court on that day was an application for amendment for which the accused lawyer, Fagbongbe SAN, opposed. The matter came up for ruling. Now, Justice Achibong ruled in favor of the prosecution, that is, allowing the amendment. And now, thereafter, he asked the prosecution, led by Chief Godwin Obla, what next? And Godwin Obla informed him that there is still a pending appeal for which they needed the record of proceedings and they filed because they were not able to lay their hands on the record of proceedings and they filed because it was alleged by officers of the officials of the court, the clerks of court, that the judge was taking them home. And now the prosecution informed me that the court needed to release this document for them to go ahead with the appeal. And thereafter, the judge excused himself, went to the chambers, and 30 minutes later came up with the very damaging pronouncement against the SAN. About five of them.
So that interval, what would have happened? You understand what I mean?
Yes.
What do you think happened at that time?
Nancy, as I'm with you, everybody is surprised. Anybody that is learned in law is surprised because the order was unfounded. There was no basis for that order. One, there was no application made to that effect. Now in law and in practice, now there ought to be an application. Assuming the court, suo motu, raised that issue, then it was incumbent upon the judge to throw the issue to the parties or their counsel representing them to address him on that. No such thing was done. Now as I'm talking to you, now counsel to the accused person, beyond making appearance and announcing his name, did not utter a single word. Now it's surprising how the judge came about with that order because there was no application to that effect.
Is a shabby prosecution, so to speak, the best narrative, or is it weighty enough to discard such level of allegation of abuse of office, the misuse of depositors' funds totaling over 42 billion naira? And we actually knew what happened before Akingbola came into the country, in the UK and all of that. Is that weighty enough? And is that the best narrative that a judge could actually give us?
Nancy, I think that is the problem with our system of justice administration. Now, to say that the prosecution was indolent, lack of diligent prosecution, and all those allegations, those flippant remarks made against those learned ACN that are not even counsel in this matter. You could remember, if you could recall, or let me inform you that those counsel for whom he had made those allegations are not even counsel in this matter. Koinshola Ajayi SAN is not a counsel in this matter. Didi Dodo is not a counsel in this matter. Kola Ode is not a counsel in this matter. And now JB Daudu is not a counsel in this matter. Now how come that these allegations have been made against them? And now coming to your question. Now, how can a transaction involving not even 42 billion? It's over 400 billion. The entire sum involved in this is over 400 billion.
Because we are seeing amendments and amendments and amendments.
And now those so-called amendment, it's not true. This matter, if you could recall, Akingbola was charged in absentia. And now when extradition proceeding was commenced against him, in the UK, Akingbola voluntarily returned to this country. And now it became necessary, after interrogation, to come up with a fresh charge because fresh fact emerged. And that was the reason for the amendment. There have been a plethora of cases. Prosecution can always amend charges depending on the circumstance of the case, as fresh facts emerge or as evidence is being led.
Is that also an excuse for the style of prosecution by the EFCC? Because the EFCC